I thought I had everything figured out. At 28, I was living in Seattle, working as a senior developer at Tech Vista, proud of the career I had built since graduating from MIT. My parents were proud too. Every Sunday, I would call my mom, Martha, and twice a month, I would have dinner with my dad, Richard, at their place in Bellevue. My younger sister, Sophia, was finishing her final year at college, and I helped with her tuition. Life felt stable, predictable even. Then one Friday night, my phone rang. A woman named Amber Johnson told me she was 3 months pregnant, and I was the father. The problem, I barely knew her. Before I tell you how my entire life fell apart in 72 hours, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what happens next will show you how a single lie can destroy everything you have built. Now let me take you back to the night this nightmare began. I remember staring at my computer screen when the call came through. I was in the middle of debugging code for a project due Monday morning. The number was not saved in my contacts, but I answered anyway. "Is this Henry?" a woman's voice asked. She sounded nervous, maybe even scared. "Yes, this is Henry. Who is this?" "It is Amber. Amber Johnson. We met at the company party back in April." I had to think for a moment. April. That was 6 months ago. Tech Vista had thrown a spring celebration at a downtown venue. I remembered going having a few beers, talking to some colleagues and their friends. Then it clicked. Amber. She was a friend of my coworker Jessica. We had chatted for maybe 20 minutes about nothing particularly memorable. I left early that night because I had an important meeting the next morning. "Okay," I remember. "What is going on?" There was a pause. Then she said, "I am pregnant, 3 months, and you are the father." My stomach dropped. The room suddenly felt smaller. "What, that is impossible. We we only talked at that party. That is it." "No, Henry. That night after the party, we went to a hotel. You were pretty drunk. I know this is hard to hear, but it happened." I sat there completely frozen. I remembered leaving that party early. I remembered getting home and going straight to bed because I was exhausted. There was no hotel. There was no night with Amber. Nothing like that happened. "Amber, I think you have me confused with someone else. I left early that night. I went home. I did not go anywhere with you." She started crying on the other end of the line. "Henry, please. I would not lie about this. I am scared. My family has already cut me off. I do not know what to do. I need help." My heart was pounding. Part of me wanted to hang up to pretend this call never happened, but another part of me felt a strange responsibility. What if I was wrong? What if something had happened that I could not remember? "Look," I said, trying to stay calm. "Let us meet in person and talk about this. There is obviously some kind of misunderstanding." She agreed, and we set a time to meet at a small coffee shop near Pike Place Market the next afternoon. That night, I could not sleep. I kept replaying that party in my mind, trying to remember every detail. I had worn a blue button-down shirt. I drank 3 beers. I talked to Jessica about her new apartment. I spoke with Amber briefly about her work in graphic design. Then I left around 9:30. There was nothing more to it. I was certain. The next day, I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. My hands were shaking. When Amber walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked tired, pale, and very pregnant. She sat down across from me and immediately pulled out an ultrasound photo. "This is real, Henry. This is happening. I looked at the grainy black and white image, a tiny shape on the screen. A baby, but not my baby. It could not be. Amber, I need you to understand something. I have no memory of anything happening between us. I left that party early. I went home alone. I am not trying to be cruel, but I need to know the truth. When this baby is born, we need to do a DNA test. She nodded, wiping tears from her eyes. Okay, I understand. But Henry, I am barely getting by right now. I need help. Doctor appointments, vitamins, maternity clothes. It all costs money. I felt trapped. If there was even a small chance this baby was mine, did I not have some responsibility to help? I told her I would think about it, and we left the coffee shop, going our separate directions. Over the next few days, I could not focus on anything. Work became a blur. I would stare at my screen for hours without writing a single line of code. Finally, that Sunday, I decided I had to tell my family. I drove to my parents' house in Bellevue, the house I grew up in, with the big oak tree in the front yard, and the porch where my dad used to sit and read the newspaper every morning. Sophia was there too, home from college for the weekend. We sat around the dining table, the same table where we had shared thousands of meals together. I told them everything about the party, about Amber's phone call, about the pregnancy. My mom's face went pale. Henry, are you absolutely sure about this? Do you remember anything happening? No, Mom. I swear I do not remember anything, but she insists it happened. My dad leaned back in his chair, his jaw tight. He was a man who valued honesty above all else. He had raised me to take responsibility for my actions. Are you absolutely certain about this? He asked, his voice low and serious. I do not remember anything happening, but she insists. Sophia interrupted. Something does not add up, Henry. This whole thing sounds off. But my parents were not convinced. The conversation ended awkwardly, with my mom telling me to figure out what I was going to do, and my dad sitting in silent disappointment written all over his face. I drove home that night, feeling like I was losing control of my own life, and it was only about to get worse. The following week, Amber started calling me regularly. At first, it was just updates about doctor appointments. Then it became requests for money. $50 for prenatal vitamins, $120 for new maternity pants, $200 for an ultrasound that insurance did not cover. None of the amounts were huge, but they kept coming. I found myself transferring money to her account almost every other day. Then things started to spread. Amber posted on social media about her pregnancy, tagging the father as someone who worked in tech. She did not name me directly, but people started putting the pieces together. Some of my coworkers gave me strange looks in the hallway. My manager called me into his office one afternoon and asked if everything was okay at home. I told him it was personal and still being worked out. The pressure was building from every direction, but the worst was still coming. One evening, I got a call from my mom. Henry, we need to talk. Amber came to see us today. My stomach sank. What, she came to your house? Yes, and she told us everything. I drove straight to Bellevue. When I walked into my parents' living room, the atmosphere was ice cold. My dad would not even look at me. My mom sat on the couch, her eyes red from crying. What did she tell you? I asked. My mom's voice was shaking. She told us that you pursued her at that party, that you convinced her to go back to a hotel with you, that you promised her You wanted a real relationship. And then when she told you she was pregnant, you denied everything and tried to avoid responsibility. That is not true. None of that is true. She was crying, Henry. She was terrified. She said she has no one else to turn to. My mom's voice broke. Tell me the truth. Did you lead this girl on? No, I barely know her. We talked for maybe 20 minutes at a party 6 months ago. That is it. My dad finally spoke, his voice, cold and measured. I raised you better than this, Henry. I raised you to be a man who takes responsibility. Sophia tried to defend me. Dad, Mom, something is not right here. Henry would not lie about this. But they were not listening. My mom kept asking why Amber would make this up. My dad kept saying I needed to do the right thing. The conversation spiraled into a full argument with me, trying to explain, and them refusing to believe me. Then a few days later, Amber delivered what she claimed was proof. She sent my parents photos from the party. In them, Amber and I were standing close together smiling. We looked like we were having a good time. But those photos did not prove anything except that we had talked at a party. Then she showed them text messages. Messages that appeared to come from my phone number. Messages where I supposedly asked her to meet up for drinks. Messages where I said I wanted to see her again. I was stunned. I never sent those. I swear I never sent any of those messages. I checked my phone immediately. There was no record of any text to Amber. Nothing in my sent folder. Nothing in my deleted messages. But the screenshots she had shown my parents looked real. They had my number at the top. This has to be fabricated, I said. Someone is setting me up. You can fake text messages. It is not that hard. My mom exploded. Stop lying, Henry. That is your number right there. My dad stood up, his face red with anger. I did not raise a liar and a coward. I tried to explain about technology, about how easy it is to spoof messages, but they were not hearing it. The argument reached a breaking point when my mom demanded I marry Amber and take responsibility for the child. I will not marry someone based on a lie, I said. My dad pointed toward the door. Then get out of this house. I stood there frozen. My own father was kicking me out. My own mother was looking at me like I was a stranger. You are choosing to believe her over me, your own son. We are choosing to believe the evidence, my dad said. And right now, all the evidence points to you being a liar. I left that night with my heart shattered. My parents disowned me. My mom blocked my number. My dad sent me an email the next morning saying they no longer considered me their son. Sophia sent me a secret text later that day. I believe you, but I cannot go against them right now. I am so sorry. I had never felt so alone in my entire life. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. I went to work, came home, and sat in my apartment, staring at the walls. I lost 15 pounds. I could not sleep more than a few hours a night. My coworkers noticed. My manager pulled me aside again and suggested I take some time off. But I could not take time off. I needed to work. I needed something to focus on, something to keep me from falling apart completely. Friends I had known for years started distancing themselves. Word had spread that I had abandoned a pregnant girlfriend. People stopped inviting me to things. Some stopped responding to my messages altogether. Amber, meanwhile, continued her campaign. She posted on social media about being a single mom, about how hard it was to do this alone. She never mentioned my name directly, but everyone knew. I became the villain in a story I had no part in writing. One night, I sat on my couch at 2 in the morning, unable to sleep, and I realized something. If I did not fight back, this lie would become my reality. I would lose everything: my family, my reputation, my career, my entire life. I decided I was going to prove my innocence no matter what it took. The next morning, I hired a private investigator. His name was Kyle Morrison, a former police detective who now ran his own investigation firm. I met him at his office in downtown Seattle and told him everything. "I need you to find out who Amber Johnson really is," I said. "There has to be something, some reason she is doing this." Kyle nodded. "People who run scams like this usually have a history. Let me dig into her background. It will take some time, and it will not be cheap. I do not care what it costs. I need the truth." For the next 3 weeks, I heard nothing. I went to work. I came home. I waited. Every day felt like a year. Then finally Kyle called. "You need to see this," he said. I met him at his office. He handed me a thick folder. Inside were documents, photos, and interview transcripts. As I read through them, my hands started shaking. Amber had done this before. 2 years ago, she had accused a man named Patrick Martinez of getting her pregnant. She had demanded money for child support. Patrick had asked for a DNA test. Before the test could be done, Amber disappeared. It turned out the baby was not his. But that was not all. Kyle had also discovered that Amber was currently in a relationship with a man named Trevor, a small-time drug dealer with a criminal record. Trevor was very likely the real father of the baby. "She targeted you because you have a clean record, a good job, and a stable family," Kyle explained. "Her plan was to get money from you during the pregnancy and then potentially extort you for more later. She has been doing this to survive." I sat there, holding the folder, my hands trembling. Relief, rage, pain, all of it hit me at once. "I need to end this," I said. Kyle nodded. "I have already contacted a lawyer for you. His name is Douglas Green. He specializes in cases like this." I met with Douglas the next day. He reviewed all the evidence Kyle had gathered and nodded. "We have enough to prove fraud, but we need to get a DNA test done to seal this case completely." Douglas sent a formal legal request to Amber demanding an immediate paternity test. At first, she refused, claiming it was too risky for the baby. But Douglas explained that there were safe prenatal paternity tests available. When Amber continued to stall, Douglas threatened to expose all the evidence we had gathered and file charges for fraud and extortion. Finally, she agreed. 2 weeks later, the results came back. I sat in Douglas's office as he opened the envelope. He read the document, then looked up at me. "Probability of paternity 0%. You are not the father." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. My hands were shaking as I took the paper from him. 0%. I was not the father. I had been right all along. I called Sophia immediately and sent her a copy of the results. She called me back in tears. "I knew it. I knew it, Henry. I am so sorry. I could not do more." The next step was confronting Amber. Douglas and I met her at a neutral location with Kyle present as a witness. When Amber walked in, she looked nervous. She knew what was coming. Douglas laid out the DNA results on the table. "You are looking at a 0% probability of paternity. Henry is not the father." But we already knew. That did we not, Amber? She tried to deny it at first, stammering through excuses. But then Douglas placed the file about Patrick Martinez on the table. Then the information about Trevor. Her face went pale. You did this to Patrick 2 years ago. You are doing it again. This is fraud, Amber. This is extortion. And we have everything documented. Amber's composure broke. She started crying, admitting that Trevor was the real father, that she had targeted me because I seemed like someone who could provide financial stability. She begged me not to press charges, saying she was desperate and scared. I looked at her across that table and felt nothing but cold anger. You destroyed my life. You turned my family against me. You ruined my reputation. You made me question my own sanity. And you did it all for money. Douglas handed her a legal document. You will be paying restitution for all the financial damages you have caused Henry. You will also be facing charges for fraud and defamation. If you fight this, we will take you to court and make sure everyone knows what you have done. Amber signed the papers. Her hands were shaking. She left that meeting broken, and I felt no sympathy. She had made her choices. Now she had to live with the consequences. But there was one more confrontation I had to face, the hardest one of all. I drove to my parents' house in Bellevue on a Saturday afternoon. I had not spoken to them in almost 3 months. I carried the DNA results with me, along with the full investigative report Kyle had compiled. I knocked on the door. My mom answered. When she saw me, her face went pale. Henry, I need to talk to you and Dad. She let me in. My dad was in the living room. When he saw me, he stood up, his expression unreadable. I did not say anything. I just handed them the DNA results. They read the document in silence. The room was so quiet, I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. My mom's hand started shaking. My dad just stared at the paper, like he could not believe what he was seeing. Oh my God, my mom whispered. Henry, My dad looked up at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw my father, at a loss for words. I handed them the investigative report next. This is who Amber really is. This is what she has done before. And this is what you chose to believe over your own son. My mom started crying, full body shaking sobs. Henry, I am so sorry. We are so sorry. Please, please forgive us. My dad, the man who had always been so strong and stoic, sank back into his chair. I failed you, he said quietly. I failed you as a father. I stood there looking at them. Part of me wanted to yell. Part of me wanted to walk out and never come back. But mostly, I just felt empty. I needed you to believe in me. I said, my voice steady but cold. Just once, I needed you to trust that I was telling the truth. But you chose a stranger over your own son. Do you have any idea what that did to me? My mom tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. Please, Henry, we made a terrible mistake. Please let us make this right. Sorry does not undo what you did. Sorry does not give me back the last 3 months of my life. Sorry does not erase the fact that when I needed you most, you were not there. My dad stood up. His eyes were red. What can we do? Tell me what we can do to fix this. I do not know if you can fix it, I said. I need time. A lot of time. I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, I could hear my mom crying and my dad trying to comfort her. But I did not look back. I walked out of that house and got in my car, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The months that followed were about rebuilding. I started seeing a therapist to work through everything that had happened. The betrayal, the isolation, the trauma of being falsely accused. It helped. Slowly, I started to feel like myself again. I threw myself into my health. I started running every morning, training for a marathon. I joined a gym and worked out 5 days a week. I reconnected with friends who had stood by me, and I let go of the ones who had not. I focused on my career and earned a promotion to lead developer on a major project. Sophia and I grew closer than we had ever been. She visited me in Seattle regularly, and we talked almost every day. She told me how guilty she felt for not standing up more, but I told her I understood. She was young, still dependent on our parents. She had been in an impossible position. My parents sent letters every week, long handwritten letters apologizing and asking for a chance to rebuild. I read every one, but for a long time, I did not respond. I was not ready. After 6 months, I finally agreed to meet them for dinner. It was awkward. There were long silences. My mom cried twice. My dad barely touched his food, but it was a start. I told them that our relationship would never be what it was before, that trust once broken is nearly impossible to fully repair. But I also told them that I was willing to try, not for them, but for myself, because holding on to anger was only hurting me. We meet once a month now. Dinners are still sometimes uncomfortable. There are topics we avoid, but slowly we are learning how to be a family again. A different kind of family, but a family nonetheless. I learned something through all of this. I learned that the only person's approval I truly need is my own. I know who I am. I know my truth. And no lie, no matter how convincing, can take that away from me. I also learned that some people will believe what they want to believe, regardless of the truth. And that is not my responsibility to fix. My only responsibility is to stand firm in my own integrity, to fight for my truth, and to never let someone else's lies define who I am. Some bridges once burned can never be fully rebuilt. My relationship with my parents will never be what it was. But I learned that the only validation I truly need is my own. I know who I am. I know my truth. And that in the end is worth more than anyone's approval. Have you ever been falsely accused of something and had people turn against you? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real stories about overcoming betrayal and finding strength. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that the truth always comes out eventually. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it reminds you to always trust your truth, even when the whole world seems to doubt you. Stay strong, and remember that your integrity is worth fighting for.